Good evening, everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin, and welcome to my channel. It's called McDuff Lives 2. And thanks for subscribing here to my backup channel. We are now approaching 900 subscribers and trying to get as much as we can before we flip back over to McDuff Lives, where we have over 7,000 subscribers. But we've been holding off over there because we got 2 strikes from YouTube. Why? For no reason at all, just because they like to put strikes on people, and it's their platform. So we obey. We say, thank you, YouTube, for letting us have a backup channel. We are grateful for that. So anyway, we're here on the backup channel tonight, but a lot of people are picking up on it. We're getting a couple hundred views per show now, and that's good. So Bill Taylor, it's great to have you back. I was thinking before the show how you and our colleague down in Atlanta, Amber Connor, have a lot in common in that you are both going through the COVID period as parents and kids through school. And I can only sympathize with you. It must be quite a challenge for you. So how's everything going as far as getting the kids educated?
It's a little bit more difficult than it was last year. Both my daughters now go to Catholic school. We abandoned my younger daughter abandoned the public school last year and went to a Catholic school. And my older daughter was already at a Catholic school, Catholic high school. But now this year in New Jersey, in particular, the powers that be are really getting strict with this mask nonsense and threats of vaccines, and the diocese, who really controls really the big narrative for the Catholic schools in this part of New Jersey, they've totally bent the knee to whatever asinine edicts our governor has come up with, and he comes up with a new one almost every day. So in theory, the Catholic school should be exempt from these idiotic mandates of the state, and only the public school should be subject to them. But whatever is going on, whatever the political situation is, the diocese has decided to acquiesce to the governor, and we're all very angry about it. Angry enough where some people who follow me on Twitter will know this. My daughter refused to wear her mask on her first day of school. My oldest daughter, who's a junior now, and refused to wear a mask on the second day. And I had to pick her up both days, which was fine. And it resulted in a meeting with my wife, the principal, the president of the school, and the Monsignor of the parish. And I laid into them pretty hard because they really are violating every single Catholic principle in the Catholic school handbook that's given out at the start of the semester. And there's going to be there's plenty of parents that are very angry about this. So yeah, it's been a challenge. My daughter is back in school. She's wearing the mask. She doesn't like it, but it was either that or stay home with me. And I'm really not that entertaining for more than 20 minutes as far as my daughter's concerned. So she did go back to school, does wear the mask, and right now she's watching our Governor Murphy debate Joe Citarelli, his challenger for November, and she's laughing at Murphy as we speak.
I'm sorry to hear this. That's a terrible thing to have to go through, and I have to say I don't think it's fair to judge anybody in these situations. We're all on our own. We don't know the darn facts, but I've been interested myself lately in the Catholic Church, and I wonder. Actually, I'd be interested in that school manual if you have it handy. I'm wondering what is the conflict that you're talking about in terms of here's what they say as opposed to here's what we do, and that kind of double speak is going on all over the place. And you cite an example of it. I don't want to get into your particular situation, but if you do have that language handy, I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, no, I actually I do have it. I don't know if it's necessarily handy. Actually, hold on a second. I'm gonna pull it up and I'll talk while I'm pulling it up. Um, so yeah, I mean, one of the difficult thing is we went through an entire summer of no masks. Nothing. There was no absolutely no situation, indoor or outdoor, where a mask was required. And even we even went to mass at the same parish that the school is at, and there was no requirement to wear a mask, at least for most of the. Well, I went a couple times, but for the times we went, and yeah, for her, and then my argument was basically we have a cognitive dissonance. I'm going to read it to you because it does. Let's see. Let me pull it up right in front of me. So basically, it's called the. I won't say the name of the school, but it's the belief statement, and it's pretty it's pretty standard what you see in any institution.
Great.
But reference is made in particular to the fifth bullet point of the belief statement. That's me. Uh, the school should encourage a strong sense of self-esteem is critical to healthy adolescent growth and development. Supporting the physical, mental, and spiritual health of each student is of the utmost importance. And my argument, both to the school and to the diocese, is that this is no way supports of physical health, and I didn't even really dwell on that too much. It's uncomfortable, and you're breathing in CO2. But the mental health, it's my daughter is very cognizant of what's going on. She didn't wear a mask all summer, and I made the point. She was a lifeguard in an ocean lifeguard this year, her first real job, and out of about 4,000 probably lifeguards on the Jersey Shore, ocean lifeguards on the Jersey Shore, might even be less, maybe 3,000. Two were killed this summer. So 2 out of 4,000. It's a 1.5% fatality rate among Jersey lifeguards. Right, it's exponentially greater than the risk of her succumbing to COVID, but she took the risk of becoming an ocean lifeguard, and 2 kids paid for it this year. I mean, right in her age group, and it can't seem to get past the dissonance of the risks of living your life and or living in fear. I mean, it's I believe I probably was able to get the diocese to really realize that what they're doing is just an abomination. But so far, there hasn't been any lessening of the restrictions. In fact, they probably got more strict. And I said the next step is when Governor Murphy says all kids must get a vaccine. I said that's when you're going to lose half your student body. You have a 115-year-old school here, and the parents are just not going to put up with a vaccine mandate. That's why we're here, because we don't have to listen to the state. We're not here because we love being Catholic. A lot of non-Catholic kids go to that school. We're here because it's not a public school. So
that was the case when I went to Catholic school too. Although I was a Catholic, it was the alternative that parents. That's the only alternative. It was you either went to the public school or it was Catholic school, and the boys that were disciplinary problems, the parents that could do it would get them out of the public school because they thought that by putting them in the Catholic school that they'd learn discipline, and it was true. The brothers walked around with a ruler in their hand, and
right.
they knew how to use it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's usually been the alternative. I mean, because it's to the public school, especially if you live in a district which doesn't have the best reputation.
Yeah.
You'll pay for it.
It's like the elections. You don't have much choice. How many choices do you really have in terms of a high school for your kids? And most people don't have any choices, so they're forced into the public schools. And I'm grateful that we do have choices. I just I can't imagine how it feels to be going through that with your own kids, and I sympathize with your daughter and everybody that has to go through this. So thanks for sharing your story there.
Sure.
It's one of many thousands of stories everywhere that are all being caused by this approach, that our government is taking to what appears to be a very, very survivable virus that doesn't seem to be any worse than the flu that we've had in the past. In terms of the statistics that I've seen, I don't want to get this channel struck either, but at the same time, I'm telling you, I'm calling BS on this idea that we have this huge medical problem, whatever you want to call it. Do we have a huge medical problem that needs to be addressed with these drastic measures? And I've been looking for it, and I don't see it.
No.
It's scary to me that our population has been so controlled by the media that they're willing to it's like the emperor's new clothes. He's saying, "Oh, look at the emperor's new clothes. They're beautiful." The guy standing there, he's completely naked, right? But everybody's been trained to believe that the emperor has these great clothes on, and so they say, "Oh, that's a most beautiful coat you've ever worn, Your Highness." And where'd you get that amazing, pair of shoes? Well, he didn't have any clothes on at all. And
Right.
and we're sitting here debating between Republican and Democrat when both sides are on board with big pharma, and both sides are the I guess I can argue for one side or the other if I have to make a choice. That's what they do. They make us choose. The lesser of two weevils, as the joke goes in uh, uh, the O'Brien book, right? Master and Commander. Yeah, it's only in the British Navy that you have to choose the lesser of the two weevils.
Right.
It's not supposed to be in the United States of America. In the United States of America, we're supposed to choose the greater of two strengths.
Right.
We're supposed to choose the absolute best of the best of the best, and they give us Biden. Oh my God. Oh, hey, thank you for writing and putting together and doing the publishing and all the work that it takes to publish your books. And congratulations on it. I got my copies of
You got him? Yeah.
I got the two Bill Taylor anthologies, Deep State Fake Alien Invasion for Profit and Distraction. Why not? And Deep State Death by Braided Bathrobe Belt. And that alliteration at the end is kind of sticky because I always think about Forrestal now and James Forrestal. And James Forrestal is a very important character that we should all include in our list of the important people in the 20th century, and know who he was, where he came from, and especially how he died.
Right. Right. Yeah, he's very interesting. And in my, I'm not in any of the books, but I don't believe there's an article in there. But on the blog, there's another story about looking at Forrestal's suicide in the papers and the archived newspapers. I came across another suicide, and I think I might have mentioned this on here before. But this same week, 7 days later, and I'm going to mess up the name. 7 days later, there was a doctor, a PhD doctor, Dr. Gordon, who Dr. Gordon founded the Gibson Island Research Conferences in the 1930s, and he ran his conference from Gibson Island all the way through about 1947. So I want to say probably 37 to 47. He was active in it, and then he moved to Wayne State. And the week after Forrestal died, Dr. Gordon plunged 13 floors from a hotel window or hotel roof in Detroit. He was teaching at Wayne State University, and I always thought that was interesting, especially with the 13 number, first of all, and that it was a week after Forrestal, and they both had a common friend or a common acquaintance, at least, in William Stewart Symington. When Dr. Gordon was running the conferences, the conferences got popular enough where they needed more room, and he actually rented the old Symington, or purchased the old Symington house for the conference purposes, and
At Gibson Island.
at Gibson Island.
Yeah.
So Symington shows up in a lot of our histories. He doesn't get much mention these days, but he certainly pops up in strange places.
I was thinking that the term frenemy might be applicable as to Simonton's relationship to Forrestal.
Right.
Because it's one of those situations where you think you're friends, your colleagues, you work on the same projects, you win the same war, for goodness sakes. But comes a time when literally push comes to shove.
Right.
And that's where the bathrobe comes in. So that's the story of Deep State Death by Braided Bathrobe Belt. One of the two collections of Bill Taylor's writing that you can get on Deep State Analytics, or that's d-stateanalytics.com. Is that right, Bill?
Yep.
Okay, so cool. Get your copies of them. They're beautifully illustrated, color pictures, and really nicely put together. So thanks again for doing the work to put it together. And
Sure.
I know what that takes. It's a labor of love, no matter what you end up selling some great, but it's a labor of love to get them out there, and everybody really will benefit from having it and reading it. And there we have the webpage right in front of us, courtesy of Andy. And thanks, Andy, for helping us out tonight as our producer. And okay, Lulu.com. That's the publisher. Okay, very good. Did you like working with Lulu.com, Bill?
Yeah, they were pretty easy to work with. It's almost everything. A lot of it has been written. Actually, the second book has a lot more original content. It's formatting and really getting into a form can be tedious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
But at least I'm not like George. I'm not actually printing it and binding it myself. So
no, that's what Andy does.
Yeah.
Andy does that 16 hours a day for a hamburger Tuesday, right, Andy?
I don't know. It wouldn't get done if I had to do that.
Yeah, it's a labor of love, as I said before, and Andy really is devoted to this work and to the whole idea of saving our republic. He's a patriot, a true patriot.
That's fine.
As are you, Bill. So let's get into your current work. What you've been working on lately?
Well, it's I actually haven't published anything too substantial in a while. I keep going down different rabbit holes, so I'm trying to find. I'm trying to concentrate on a particular subject. So I'll just mention some of the rabbit holes because maybe people know things and can look into it themselves. I guess this is the crowdsourced effort. And more broadly, I'd like to come up. I think there's a thesis that almost all these, deep state crimes of the 20th century and our 21st century, there really is a point of origin to all of them. From the JFK assassination to the current pandemic. If you want to go back before JFK, you're looking at the trading with the Nazis, the start of World War II, some spy rings, the Rosenberg spy rings, and even going back to the World War I idea of a lot of false flags to get the United States involved. And the same names keep popping up, or relatives of the same names. Just to go back to Forrestal briefly, one of the names that pops up prominently in a lot of these deep state crimes is Admiral Lewis Strauss, who was the chairman of the AEC, Atomic Energy Commission, twice from about 52 to 59. Maybe 53 to 59. And interestingly, one of one of his early jobs, or one of his jobs when he became a Navy man, when he became a commissioned Navy man at a very ripe age during World War II, was he worked directly for Admiral Forrestal. Worked in his office, and he's certainly a suspicious character. His primary job for 23 years was a partner at Kuhn Loeb, and during his tenure at Kuhn Loeb, he did join the Naval Reserves, and when World War II came about, he was promoted to a rear admiral position. Not really a Navy man, but he had the bars and the title. So he shows up in all kinds of different contexts. This Forrestal puts him certainly in a Symington ring. The Atomic Energy Commission is very interesting. It's if you go back, I mentioned the Apollo affair a number of times, but the Apollo affair, the company involved in the Apollo affair, NUMEC, the predecessor company was the Santoy Mining Company, which was essentially are economically controlled by ASARCO, the largest metal smelting company in the world, and Kuhn Loeb was the investment banker for ASARCO since 1905. So you have this real this syndicate and this cabal of really Kuhn Loeb partners, infiltrating the mechanisms of government during the war and after the war. This Atomic Energy Commission. You think about atomic energy right after World War II. That was going to. He's the one who said atomic energy would make electricity too cheap to meter. This is Lewis Strauss. So, if you're looking to control the world, if you have a one world idea, you're going to want to control the whole nuclear apparatus, whether it's weapons or fuel, you need to have your Kuhn Loeb partner running the show, and that's essentially what happened. Kuhn Loeb is running the Atomic Energy Commission during the after the war and up until the 60s when Strauss finally left. So I think if you go back, you start finding these partnerships back to these older firms like Kuhn Loeb or ASARCO or Harriman or Brown Brothers Harriman and Alex Brown, then you kind of get the idea who the banking elite are. Well, JP Morgan as well.
Maybe Andy could give us something on SARCO. That's one that I'm not very familiar with. So, tell us what SARCO is, and maybe
sure. It's ASARCO. It stands for American Smelting Company. ASARCO, American Smelting Company, or something or other. It was the largest smelting company. Did it pop up? ASARCO was started in 1905 by William Rockefeller.
There we go. Oh boy, a Rockefeller.
Yeah, go figure.
I'm glad I asked.
Go figure. And he had planned. So it's owned by Grupo Mexico now. It's still around, but it was a plan of William Rockefeller to turn the mining and metal industry into the Standard Oil, using the Standard Oil Trust business model, which is basically buy up all your competitors, and if you don't buy them out, then put them out of business, and then you buy up the supply chain from the mines all the way up until the finished product, and essentially it was a giant trust, a metals and mining trust, just like Standard Oil is a giant gas and oil trust.
Or like IG Farben, which is a giant trust of chemical and related industries. Exactly.
And they really play dirty. All these trusts, there's a reason why they got rid of the trusts, because they're not competitive. They're monopolies. Underhanded business practices. So
reminds me of my first law partner. He had these fat little fingers, and I was young, and I used to listen to him when he put those little fat fingers down on the table, and he'd look me in the eye and he'd say, "John, trust me." And I did for about 10 years or so. Learned a lot. Great experience. Yeah, trust me, right. Yeah. If they need to tell you, if they need to say, trust me, you
Right.
might think twice about it.
Right.
That's the idea behind a trust is, hey, I'm a trust,
Right.
so what could go wrong? Trust me.
Trust me. There's actually a lesson in all these trusts, these 19th century, early 20th century trusts, for what we're currently seeing, because these trusts really relied on infiltration of competitors and suppliers and downstream customers. So a Rockefeller, a John D. Rockefeller would get someone like one of the Bushes or one of the Walkers, they get him a high-paying job or vice president job or an executive suite job at one of the competitors, and then the Bush or the Walker or whoever it might be is really selling the company secrets back to the Rockefellers. So after a year or two, you know what the production is, you know what their production capacity is. Any type of industrial or business secret, which you don't want the competition to know, it's already out the door. And you see that with what's going on now. It's I believe probably industrial sabotage or industrial infiltration goes on, but now we're talking about government infiltration, government sabotage. If somebody, just take the case of Lewis Strauss, you can get him into the AEC, right? Then everything about the atomic energy industry, and he has an obligation to keep that secret, but he's not. He's going to tell the Rockefellers or Kuhn Loeb partners where the next uranium discovery is going to be made, or who should be awarded a license for the first commercial refiner of weapons grade uranium. You control the levers, and now we're seeing it now. The Fauci's done it. They work for the Gates, probably people higher than Gates. But they were, they play a long game. You get Fauci in early, and start pressing him for secrets, whether he wants to or not. Whether he takes a carrot or a stick. I think that's where we're at. That's what has to be destroyed. This infiltration system, and the network of managers of the infiltrators, like I believe, is probably not all that big. That's why I think it's still worth doing this type of research, because it's the same players in 1920 as it is in 2020. We're still talking about the Bushes. We're still talking about the Morgans, the Auchinclosses, or however you pronounce it, and a whole bunch of other names. It's it's fascinating, but it's also, hopefully it's meaningful.
Yeah, it's so much, but we try to put our arms around it, and that's of course what I tried to do, is to just try to reach around all this stuff and organize it in some way. And part of what I do in trying to find what is the point of source, or as you put it, where's the bow that these arrows are flying out of? Who's holding that bow, and who's pulling it back, and who's aiming it? And it goes back a long ways. It just plain goes back a long ways. And so we study the idea of the American Revolution and its coincidence with the Illuminati. You have done some study into the idea of Frankism and that crazy idea that could be fueling some of the financial things that are happening. There's the great work of Sean Ross, which I don't know if you've had a chance to look at his stuff yet, but I enjoy his connection of all the way from the Egyptian pharaohs to the Freemasons of today, and it's not that unreasonable to connect those things. Now, I've been reading Rulers of Evil again. I read it about 8 or 9 years ago before I studied all this stuff with George Webb and Mark Kulak and yourself, and got up to speed on the Freemasons as much as I could. And now I'm back thinking, wow, you know what? It is the Jesuits, it's the Jesuits. And but I could change tomorrow and say, no, no, it's the royals, it's the King of England, it's the British royals. No, it's the Freemasons. No, it's and and so we're all trying to find where this point of origin is of all these just plain despicable, immoral, and often genocidal political decisions that are being made, and it is a pattern, and we're on the case. But I am still I've still got a lot of candidates, and I haven't decided who to indict yet. How are you doing?
I've solved all the mysteries of the world pretty much in the past couple of weeks.
Oh my God, I'm so glad we're having this talk. Bill, my man.
No, I guess it's you're looking for patterns and familiar names, and I've tried to limit the look back. I think to about the Civil War, and I think for North American purposes, that's where you could probably stop. Maybe the early 1800s, but because you just, for me at least, I just keep going down a different rabbit hole. There's always something else to look back if I go back too far. But I mean, one of the common themes, and you'll find out if you look at some of these names long enough, is textiles. And textiles was the Rothschild business. That's why they came to North America. They weren't here to sell drugs or get in trouble, but they were here to provide letters of credit for ships leaving New Orleans and headed for Birmingham and the textile cities in England, and also north, the New England states. But
when did the Rothschilds start being active in these businesses, like in New Orleans, for example?
I believe the I can't think of which Rothschild it was. Nathan maybe bought his first textile mill in Birmingham or Manchester, England, in about 1799, which was almost exactly at the same time that the cotton gin was invented by Eli Whitney, who was a Yale man. And so that's when you really start to. So with the invention of the cotton gin, and you have you have consumers in England. That's when the Rothschilds start making letters of credit and export-import loans, and providing the grease to facilitate trade between the South and in the New England states and the British Isles. So that's where I think things really manifest as far as the Rothschilds getting involved in U.S. affairs, and they always did it through agents. Of course, Kuhn Loeb was really their main agent for a long time. There's plenty of arguments to say that they also started the Civil War over this exact same thing. One of my stories, one of my essays, has a chart showing the cotton production from 1800 to 1860, and it was just, it was a business to be in at that time. It was increasing standards of living with industrialization, and the Rockefellers were providing the letters of credit, and it shouldn't be a surprise at all, because the Sassoons controlled the cotton market in India and Egypt, so the Rothschilds went to North America to control that cotton market.
And lest we forget the labor was free,
And the labor was free. Right.
and that's our legacy too. That is such a tragic thing to recognize that it was on the backs of hundreds of thousands of enslaved people that this wealth was generated for those textile merchants and their bankers. And you know, when you say textiles, and it just two names come up immediately to me. First of all, IG Farben,
Hmm.
because Farben is color and in German, and that is dyes. That they were in the chemical dye business, dyeing fabrics, and that was a huge business. And it is the second name that comes up is Mallinckrodt,
Hmm.
because Mallinckrodt was a dye specialist in pre-war Germany, who became an agent for the Nazis that went out into France and to talk to all their chemical companies and told them, you know, hey, the Nazis are coming and we're going to need your cooperation, and here's how you cooperate, and you know, pretty much absorbed the existing French chemical industry into the Nazis' chemical industry, and then he comes over to America in South in St. Louis, and there go and Mallinckrodt Industries, and who is Mallinckrodt today is the exclusive supplier of opiates uh, to Medicare and Medicaid, if I'm not mistaken. So these Civil War names, these Civil War guys that created these financial empires on the backs of free labor, that is our legacy that we're stuck with. And I just would add that it is a mentality that we have to recognize didn't die with the Civil War. The mentality of I'm going to make money by controlling, using, exploiting, uh, if necessary, culling other populations, because I really don't care about anybody except me and mine. And that is where this world is being drawn against the incredible efforts of our generations, of our parents, and the greatest generation, going all the way back to the founding and before of this country that we're trying to base on liberty and freedom. And right now, I mean, here you are, your family is right at the front line, and we're all facing this nightmare of being forced to give up our liberty in favor of what, the promise of security, because we don't even know what the effect of submitting is, except for that if you don't, you get more immunity than if you do, if you get sick. And that is so backwards from ordinary medicine that, you know, I think I think of my family doctor when I was growing up, and you know, they believed in the immune system. They believed in the importance of people being exposed to things so that you learn how to fight them off, and that's why we have important uh, items in, you know, in the children's diets on nutrition and things like that are so important. Nutrition, understanding, you know, how basically how the body works and how to protect it from disease, and protecting your immune system and keeping your vitamin levels up and all of that stuff. That would be so great if everybody just did it, you know. But they're seducing us constantly, you know, constantly, you know. Look at this beautiful juicy burger, you know. And I no, don't do that, you know. Remember the guy that created a big stacked roast beef sandwich, and he called it the heart attack, and then he had one, and he died. And and but I don't know. I don't want to get on a rant, and especially I'd rather hear you talk. But doggone it, we're in the front lines, we're in the trenches, and this is where we have to draw a line and say, no, I'm calling BS. This is just too un-American. It is not what our forefathers fought and died for, and we have got to hold the line. What do you think?
No, definitely. And the only thing you can do is just learn more. I mean, there's plenty to do. Um, which just to get back to the Rothschilds, which I think is the angle which I think is interesting and where it connects to the Frankists and the Sabbateans is that the sort of the level of evil on the part of some of these people has to be it has to be at a spiritual level more than just greed, okay? Because these people do accumulate a lot of money, and they did over the centuries, but you start to see where it becomes, you almost need a religious fanaticism to sort of do some of the things that these people have done, or that they plan on doing. And that's where the Frankism or the Sabbatean Frankists come in, because you really are doing, okay, that's your justification for enslaving people, for enslaving Africans, 200 years ago, or for attempting to enslave people now, is that it's justified under your religion. And the Sabbatean Frankists, they do everything opposite of what Judaism says to do, or Judeo-Christian basically says to do. So you do have you want to throw the Jesuits in there. Well, then there's your infiltration part of the Catholic Church. How did the Catholic Church become corrupt? Okay, through certainly through different means, and a lot of people point the fingers at the Jesuits, but there has to be an origin to that Jesuit corruption, and
It does go way back before the Jesuits. It's one of those kind of back and forth things in history,
right.
and you can start with the Jesuits and move forward. But if you start there, then you didn't see the things that went on before it. The big thing before the Jesuits was Martin Luther.
Right.
And Martin Luther comes in like 1480s, right? And the Jesuits are 1540s. So Luther is now attacking the Catholic Church on the basis of indulgences and idol worshiping, but basically the main complaint is that the church is financing itself and in royalty, in splendor, by selling indulgences, which is a piece of paper that says that here you now get your first murders are free, or you can commit any number of sins as long as you've bought so many indulgences, and the church was selling those things for hundreds of years, and it was so what I'm saying is that Martin Luther is a reaction to existing corruption in the church.
Right.
Then, but then the Jesuits are now a reaction to Martin Luther, because they don't want everybody to leave the church just because, Martin Luther makes a few points. So they then come in and are a military organization of monks or priests that will do whatever, by any means necessary to preserve the papacy, and that is the short version of you can start with the Jesuits, but then you need to go back before that, and from there you can go back to Constantine and the whole idea of, hey, why do we have all these mystical kind of pagan images in the Catholic Church in the first place? And, oh, it's fascinating to dig back that far, but I agree with you. I think the American Civil War is a great place if you want to just get started there. And your work exposing the Lehman Brothers and other financing of the South is part of history that people never know. So maybe tell us a little bit about your work in studying that aspect of our history.
Well, I mean, it's Lehman Brothers. Lehman Brothers was cotton merchants. Kuhn Loeb started 1867 with Kuhn and Loeb from Cincinnati. I believe they were merchant, home goods merchants, general store type stuff, textiles, a lot of clothing. So you can imagine, you have this industry, which is probably the biggest industry in the country at the time. There's a network that builds up around it. There's ancillary businesses that build up around it, but they're all dependent on the core textile business. And I keep going back to textiles because the name, it keeps popping up. So if I go back to if I look at the Amory family, who I mentioned before, Robert Amory, director of CIA and director of intelligence at CIA, and his brother Cleveland, who was founder of the Humane Society of the United States, which is a pro-sterilization, one of the first pro-sterilization humane society. The Amorys were from a textile family. They owned mills in the South. They owned mills in New England. One of the more interesting names that I came across maybe about 2 years ago was there's another gentleman on Gibson Island with the last name Bureau. And this Bureau, it's been very, very difficult to find information on him, but one of his CVs, one of his resumes says he worked for Urenco, which is in the explosives business. He comes across, it looks like he's in the explosives industry. Now there's a couple of variations on it, but his wife comes from a prominent Southern family who helped found the New York Cotton Exchange in the 1870s, 1880s, after trading in cotton essentially moved from New Orleans to New York. But if you look at some of the criminals that we see nowadays, if you think about it, they're in textiles. What's his name? Epstein's pal with the Limited.
Wexner.
Wexner. That's the end of the textile supply chain. Same thing with Nygaard up in Canada, women's clothing, wholesale women's clothing in Canada for decades. Hillary Clinton's father, Roderick Fabrics, which I have a theory on, is really Rodriguez Fabrics, and Roderick is the Turkish form of Rodriguez, and that's really where your Sassoons and your Rothschilds likely originate from. There's quite a few more. The Rockefellers, the William Rockefellers of Asarco, Cranston Printworks of New England, Connecticut, just any number of names. Hillary Clinton's father was also with the Scranton Lace Company, but there was always this one of the mafia rackets was the garment industry for years, and the garment industry, the garment racket involved controlling the means of distribution, trucking, unions for a long time, and it did it was a criminal outfit, and who knows what else goes along with that criminal outfit, whether it's probably trading in people. If not, then it's a good way to it's a good way to move drugs, because you have the trucks and you have the retail, and you're really getting your drugs to the market. I think the Rothschilds probably started out pretty innocently in this country, but at some point they switched to they could also make a lot of money selling opium. So this network, you have this umbrella textile business, which is mostly legit, but it's really it's also making it easy to transport drugs, which is really the cash cow. You don't have to put too much opium on a truck to make money. If it's carrying dresses or table linens, it pays for the truck ride.
Check the rocker panels.
Right.
Always check the rocker panels. Yeah, we watched that the other night, French Connection. My wife and I, she's recovering from a little health incident, but she's doing good. But we've been watching some oldies, and boy, that one never gets old. I tell you, Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider, man, what a pair.
Yeah.
And it gives you a real honest background of the Corsican French connection that is, you can just plug that movie right into your historical narrative at this point because it's all
Yep.
real. It's
Yeah.
all true. And the only thing that you didn't get from the movie is that the French guy, he got away because the CIA was, making sure he got away.
Right. Right.
He wasn't because he was clever, because that was all part of the Hellawell plan.
Right.
And yeah, that the whole we spent a lot of time on dope and following the opium and all of that stuff. But textiles is an amazing way to look at the past too. When you consider that the like IG Farben but if you look back at the major industries of Europe, textiles is one of them that's always been there. And I'm thinking, it just kind of thinking out loud that one of the things that was very important to the royalty was to have the right color of your robe, and of course everybody wanted to have purple, right? But
Hmm.
but there was also all of this beautiful tapestry that was being made, and I don't know, embroidery and all the kinds of finery that is expressing the idea of nobility through clothing, and
Right.
that would drive an entire, real fountain of wealth for the merchant class that gets that rises up out of the textile industry, and then in conjunction with the Rothschilds or other financial assistants, then can branch out into new areas like New Orleans or Baltimore or South Carolina, and take advantage of the conditions there. Free labor. That sounds good.
Right. Right. And it all flowed through one place. Both the opium and the textiles originally flowed through southern Turkey, through the Levant, through Turkey, and it's specifically Smyrna, the city of Smyrna. And you had a Himalayan opium coming through and the Corsicans would cut it. But you also had the textile, for hundreds and hundreds of years, since India had, the main crop, the main cotton crops came from India and came from Egypt before the American South, before America was ever conceived of. So you have these families really playing the middleman. It's coming from the east, and then you have the middleman in Turkey, like the Sassoon family, and probably the Rothschilds, and they're the selling it to the Western Europeans, and it's just for the most part it's just cotton they're selling. But then other cash crops come along too from the same exact place.
Yes, and thereby hangs the tale. That's we were talking about the abduction from the Seraglio with our good friend David Chavin, the violinist with Schiller Organization, the other night, and well, it was a month ago now, but that reminds me of Pasha, the Pasha Salem was a Osman, and when we think of Osman, Tim Osman and Osama bin Laden and that name, few people realize that Osman was the name of the last Turkish emperor when the Turkish Ottoman Empire fell in 1918. The emperor that was deposed was Osman, and that name goes back in the imperial history of Turkey and the Ottoman Empire. And he was actually in history, it was treated pretty much like a European monarch in terms of back and forth. In other words, the reason that I mention that at all is because while yes, they had a war, and yes, they did have times of war, but they also had times of peace. And whether it was war or peace, money was going to be made. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where this trade comes in, and that's where the facility of being in the right place, and also being Jewish, because if you're Jewish, then you're not bound by Christian restrictions on usury, as long as you're doing business with Christians and not Jews, and that just created this entire court Jew culture that worked hand in hand with the merchant class in enriching themselves um, while giving enough money to the nobility that they were allowed to keep that scheme going. I wonder if that's not exactly what's going on right now.
Right, right. So unsuspecting now. I would say most people don't realize it. It really is an underhanded portion of this, and 99% of the people are unwitting participants in it. You know, and anyway, it's interesting the history of it, and like you said, it can go down a lot of different rabbit holes, but if there's a theme, it's textiles. And I'll just bring up one other thing actually that George mentioned today on his show on it when he was at the tobacco farm, which I thought I was reading about a couple of weeks ago, and it struck a chord. So he's down in Richmond on a tobacco farm, and the cigarette industry only got really started about 1885, 1884 when uh, James Duke and Thomas Fortune Ryan bought the patent for a cigarette rolling machine to mass produce cigarettes. Cigarettes were a luxury item before that. They were hard to make, and you had to roll them yourselves. But after the machine came out, sort of like the cotton gin, that everybody could smoke as much as they want. Everybody was smoking cigarettes, kids, dogs. But one of the key ingredient, the key ingredient besides, of course, tobacco, which makes it different from cigars, is the additive of black licorice. And
I never knew that.
Yeah, that's it's a finer cut, but almost all tobacco has black licorice. So you invented this great machine, and you were selling cigarettes to everybody, smoke them if you got them, giving them out at school and everything. And but you still need the black licorice. And then the firm of McAndrew and Forbes discovers that Turkey has a lot of black licorice, and they start exporting black licorice out of the port of Smyrna, where the opium comes from, and also the textiles come from. And that was about 1890. I always wondered what came first, the opium and then the black licorice, because once you go to Smyrna a couple times a month with your ship, it's got to be awfully tempting to bring back some opium with you. Or did you just invent the entire cigarette market so you can bring in opium as a reason to go get black licorice? But that's where the main source of black licorice in the world has always been Turkey, and it comes out of the same port that opium comes out of.
Well, I can't say I'm a great fan of black licorice, but when you go to we're great fans of Iceland, and in Iceland the famous candy is called opal, OPAL, and it comes in a little cardboard box, and everybody has a box of opals, and what it is black licorice. It's a little black licorice confection it's like their national candy or something. So some people like it, but I don't know about
I've never liked it. I don't know. They can have it.
I'll take the opium.
Yeah, it's good it makes your cigarettes taste like a cigarette instead of a cigar.
All right. Well, all right, guys. Hey, thank you, Bill. This has been a lot of fun, and sorry if I went off on one of my rants here and there, but that's the price you pay for for appearing here with me on McDuff Lives. It's a privilege to have you, Bill. Thanks a lot, and best of all to your family, and hope everything works out. Let's keep fighting the fight, and we'll win this thing.
Very good. Sounds good.
All right. Good night, everybody.